you're new to my channel, a special hello. I am here to bring you today a book review. I'm gonna change the camera angle slightly. Hi everybody. Hi everybody and welcome back. I am here to bring you today a book review of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Now this is a classic. My edition is the Barnes & Noble's classic. I didn't make it a goal to read this book. This was very much an impulse purchase. A local bookstore in Chicago, Unabridged Bookstores, was having a virtual book club, and this happened to be the book they picked for fiction. And that's what caught my eye originally. I didn't realize that Upton Sinclair's book, I'm sorry, I'm playing with the glare of the light. I didn't realize The Jungle was fiction. Let me explain. When I was in high school, I learned about the jungle in US history. Why? Was because Sinclair's book, it's designed to expose the filth and garbage in the American meatpacking industry back in the day. As a reference, it led to a full investigation by Teddy Roosevelt, and it eventually led to the Pure Food and Drug Act. This is really rare that a novel has that kind of political impact. Upton Sinclair was known as a muckraker. He would write these satirical pieces and really expose the underbelly of what was going on in America. This book actually led to other, I'd say, muckraker or sensational pieces like Uncle Tom's Cabin. So what is this book actually about if it's fiction? The Jungle centers on Jurgis Rūdkis, a Lithuanian immigrant working in Chicago's infamous packing town. Instead of finding the American dream, Rūdkis and his family inhabit a brutal, soul-crushing, urban jungle dominated by greedy bosses, pitiless con men, and corrupt politicians. So I listened to this as an audiobook. It was 15 hours long. When I put it on 1.2, I couldn't get faster than 1.2 without not paying attention. It was about 12 hours, I would say. My camera is overheating. I'm gonna pause and I will be right back. Okay, my camera overheated. We took a 5-minute YouTube break, maybe more like 10 minutes, to watch something fun on the internet that was mindless while this camera cooled down. So if the camera position is a little different, you'll have to forgive me. I was talking about Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and the fact that this is a work of fiction. So once I found out this was a work of fiction, I had to read it. It's one of the few classics that have to do with food that I think is well known. Now, I've obviously had, you know, a United States white privileged upbringing, so feel free to destroy me in the comments if there's classics you guys want me to read that are very food centric. Please tell me in the comments below. I want to keep reading in the fiction world, and especially in the classics, but what I don't want to read is, how do I put this? Oh, Little Women the movie came out based off the book, and then you know what came out in 2020 that was a bestseller? The Little Women cookbook of 2020. That I don't want to do, because that's taking food from a time period, not specifically the book. Versus The Jungle, this is all about food in the sense, it's about the meatpacking industry and how terrible those conditions were in Chicago. So the protagonist is Jurgis, who is Lithuanian. He marries his teenage wife, Ona. She's 16. Look, I'm not gonna go into the ages and how weird that was. He marries little Ona. They call her little Ona, okay? So he marries little Ona, and he has a friend who owns a Jewish deli in America and heard how his friend came to America and had great success. And he thought, I'll do that. And somehow this journey to America with Ona brings along with him like 5 other family members, including little Stanislavas and Ona's cousin Maria. And they all come to Chicago. They can't speak any English, and they have to find a place to live. So at first you learn about the housing conditions, which are deplorable. Too many people packed in too small of a home. No real way to handle waste. Indoor plumbing's not a thing. The conditions are awful. They all go around and beg and get jobs, and really they are conned into buying a home, and they sign a contract they don't really understand, and now suddenly they're struggling dollar to dollar to make these payments on a house that's supposed to be brand new. It's not. Every time an immigrant family gets evicted because they can't pay their rent, this company just slaps on a new coat of paint, fixes the roof, and puts a new family in it. And these are the conditions that were very true to the time period where immigrants would come from all over the world looking for work. And they were at the mercy of mob bosses. The meatpacking boss has a deal with the police. If you mess with one guy, you're blacklisted by 3 other meatpacking places. It's all manual labor. No one's learning to read or write. The kids can't go to school. There's all kinds of awful things that happen in this book and this family. And it points, Ona is the victim of sexual harassment and later rape and forced prostitution by her boss. Jurgis goes into a rage, and by going into a rage, he beats up the plant owner, and then Jurgis loses his job, and then their whole life falls apart. And this is only one part of the book. It's a spoiler because it's a plot device, but it's not the whole book. And you get to see what people had to do to survive and what they had to eat, and how the women, you know, why women turned to prostitution, how having a baby was not something to be excited about because you had another mouth to feed, child labor, how pennies and how the men would turn. I think one of the more enlightening things was where the role of alcoholism came for these immigrants and these men who worked in the meatpacking industry, especially when they lost their jobs and they were on the streets. They would beg for work at the gate of the meatpacker in the morning, sometimes for hours, and if they didn't get a job, they'd be turned away. Now they've been turned away and it's winter. One of the only places that are warm where they could actually get a hot meal that wasn't complete crap was actually at the saloons. So you'd go in and you'd spend your last nickel on a beer, and if the bartender knew you, they would give you something to eat. And then you could stretch that beer as long as you could to stay out of the snow and stay by the fire and have some camaraderie with your fellow workers or people who are unemployed, and how that cycle just continues and continues and continues. And it's really destructive, and Jurgis's family gets separated, they fall apart. He ends up bumming around the world. Yes, actually, like, is a bum and goes to the countryside. And, you know, some people say, oh, well, the countryside, you work on the farm, you'll get work, but it's limited by seasonality. So the same problems happen that the winter comes around, there's no work. But unlike the horse or the oxen that pulls and helps the farmer, it's easier for the farmer to turn away a human being because it's another mouth to feed, versus the animal serves purpose year round. Ultimately, this is a super depressing book. Don't read this if you're looking for joy. It's not gonna happen, unfortunately. But it is sensational. It is so well written. To the details of those working conditions, it's appalling, but it's so beautifully written. And I don't know where I read this, so forgive me if I'm slightly wrong. It might have been on Wikipedia. Take it with a grain of salt. But I believe Upton Sinclair actually went undercover for, I think, 3 months to really understand the ins and outs of the meatpacking industry in Chicago to write this book. And to me, that it speaks volumes. It's so accurate. It's so vivid. I can imagine being there. I can imagine how awful it would feel to go to bed hungry, and when your children go to bed hungry, and all the terrible ways people die, because so many people die. Don't get attached to anybody. It's not worth it. Would I recommend that you read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle? Yes, especially now that I know it's fiction. I'm so proud of myself for reading a book that like this, and I know that probably seems strange since I read so much nonfiction, but this was a doozy to read and or listen to. It's about 350 pages. It does talk about socialism towards the end of the book. To each your own on how you feel about politics, but it's a beautiful book. It's a downer, plot-wise, story-wise, but now I have such a deeper appreciation for this book now that I've actually read it, because I've learned about it in so many history classes, like Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, the Pure Food and Drug Act, Teddy Roosevelt. Like, that's the affiliation or the memory connection I had to this book. Now I actually know the whole story, and I'm really excited about that. So this wraps up my review of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I would recommend that you read it. It is a classic. I'm glad I did. Let me know in the comments below. First off, did you know that this was a work of fiction? If you did, good for you. Second, would you give this an actual read? So that's everything I have for you today. I hope you are well. If you haven't already, I would love for you to consider hitting like and subscribe below and being part of my foodie bookish family. I have plenty of fun wrap-ups, vlogs, and discussions about my subscription box Read It and Eat, book duos, and also a sweet series where I focus on nonfiction food writing books that focus on sweet treats. I've already done 2 videos, one about Fluffernutter and one about Twinkies. I hope you are well. I hope you join my bookish community. Wear a mask, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.